Graphic design is everywhere. It's the ad you see on TV and the font you use on your laptop. It was a thing before it was called graphic design, and it will be a part of our lives as long as we need to read and create.
Graphic design used to be combining pictures and words on a poster in order to get someone to join the army or buy Campbell's soup. And while it still does that, it has evolved into much more now. All forms of media use graphic design, whether it's a newsroom, Facebook, magazines, or the flyers you see on bulletin boards.
Graphic design isn't as new of a field as most people think. It started with cavemen and eventually the Egyptians. It was used as a way to tell stories and keep logs, and it evolved into a way to spread information and influence society.
The practice of actually printing letters has been seen throughout the course of history in many different regions. Typography can be traced back to 1600 BC Greece, where a disc was carved with letters and pressed onto paper. Printing is also found in medieval Europe during the 13th century, when typographers would use single-letter blocks to press onto walls.
The most notable example of typography is Johann Gutenberg in the 15th century, when he invented the printing press. Spreading information in writings had never been easier. Scribes didn't need to copy down entire books to share. Instead, the writer could send it to the printing press and the work could be done in a fraction of the time.
Soon, the addition of printing photographs in newspapers was introduced, but printing presses only had black ink and couldn't reproduce the continuous shading of photos. Max Levy and his brother solved the problem in 1872 when they invented a way to accurately print half-tone dots. These are the black and gray dots that combine to create pictures in print. They can vary in size but allow for the shading necessary to print photographs.
Presses made graphic design easier, but with the invention of chromolithography, printing in color progressed it even farther. A. Hohen & Company was the first printing company in America to use this technology, and soon they became the largest printer for smoking and chewing tobacco labels.
Graphic design changed as countries started to wage war and began showing up as propaganda. During the World War I, James Montgomery flag created the Uncle Sam we all know today. Blue coat, top hat, and a single finger pointing right at the viewer. "We want you to join the U.S. Army" was added to encourage recruitment, and it has become a symbol of propaganda.
In times of war, companies and even the government use graphic design to influence the public. Whether it's detailed posters or in-your-face typography to boost recruitment and sales, it is now used to target civilians.
With so many countries, groups, and businesses beginning to depend on graphic design, the need for individuality grew larger. This is where branding began. Logos, slogans, and advertisements were created, centralized, and helped one stand apart from their other competition.
Coca-Cola is a perfect example of this. It started in 1886 with a pharmacist, and his partner created the cursive brand that has stuck with it to this day. The white font on red background is one of the most recognizable logos in history, as are the golden arches. Companies created logos and advertisements specific to their brands to help boost sales and connect with audiences.
Although graphic design has always existed, it hasn't always been an option for a professional career. 30 years ago, there was certainly no way to study it at college, but now it's an extremely competitive field. There are over 100 schools in the U.S. dedicated to art and creation, and thousands of scholarships available for those interested in graphic design.
Internships for graphic design are more prominent now too because it's important for students to learn the business and art aspect of the field. The internships can range from working at newspapers to actually building prototypes for companies.
Now that graphic design is a recognized profession, there are huge archives striving to preserve the history while it progresses.
The future of graphic design is constantly changing. It seemed to peak with the invention of Adobe Photoshop and JavaScript, but now it's moving past that to something more visionary. A more responsive design seems to be all the buzz, and it's not a design that looks good on phones and computers. It's a design that appeals to the user's emotional state.
This new technology will use less words and more appealing visuals. When the text is used, they could perhaps use a different font with each word. The future of graphic design is headed towards an aesthetically centered user experience, taking into account the user's preferences for everything.
Graphic design is bigger than most people realize. It's everything you read and look at. The ads, magazines, labels, brands, or anything that can influence you and your perspective of the world.